ladies and gentlemen, as we rejoice over getting together here today, we also weep for Paris. We mourn and pray for those innocent lives that are lost. Can I just suggest that we take a minute to observe silence before we start? Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here and welcome to the ABAC Women's Forum. As I landed in the Manila airport yesterday, I see the following slogan that really encouraged me: building inclusive economies and building a better world. And we're all here today because we all agree that inclusiveness means progress. And there's no more appropriate example of progress than the evolution of ABAC Women's Forum. Starting from a 7-woman closed-door cult-like meeting to today, we have 300 registered guests at this luncheon today. Thank you for making that progress possible. And why do we care about women? Why do we care about making progress in inclusiveness? Here's just a really quick example. Imagine if you work really hard, day in and day out, falling into bed exhausted and rising with the sun every morning. You work so hard, but you never get paid. You never get even recognized that you're creating any value at all. How crazy does that sound? How unfair does that sound? But in fact, that is the situation facing many women around the world today. When governments measure national economies, women's work, including those caregiving, housekeeping, homemaking, are not considered actual work at all. And imagine if all of the women around the world taking care of their family contribute to one nation, we will have a 10 trillion US dollars economy. That will be the 4th largest economy in the world. And just imagine, if women are not assigned a disproportionate amount of the caring responsibilities and are able to participate in the economy more fully, we have an opportunity to create 28 trillion US dollars to the global economy. I think that's a very clear business case. Women, and that's why women means business. That's why we gather together alongside every ABAC meeting to talk about progress, to help mainstream this issue in our dialogues with policymakers and leaders. And that's also why policymakers or business leaders alike, we have no excuse not to act. Today, this luncheon features the theme of women, business, and rule of law. Rule of law will be a very important issue for 2016, as we have heard from the incoming ABAC chair and some chair this morning at the opening plenary. But just like many critical issues that we discussed in ABAC today, it is impossible to take a very complete picture, look at the complete picture of the issue without applying a gender lens. Examining whether the rule of law is established and practiced in a way that serves everybody, that is based on the foundation of gender equality. Gender-based discrimination still permeates across all of our cultures in one way or another. And it is often manifested in law, in policies, and in practices of institutions, even in places where constitutions guarantee equal rights. Customary norms and traditions can still serve as major obstacles for women and girls to access justice, security, and opportunities. And oftentimes it's about recognizing the problem, that we can finally start taking proactive actions to address the problem. Today we're so honored to have among us the Chief Justice from the Supreme Court of the Philippines. We can't wait to hear her perspectives on this issue, followed by questions and comments from across the floor. So once again, thank you very much. I would like now to pass the floor to our very energetic Chair Doris Ho to introduce the Chief Justice.
The Honorable Chief Justice, Maria Lourdes Sereno, ABAC colleagues, distinguished guests, a pleasant afternoon. I'm really happy to welcome those who have just arrived. We're especially honored to have with us the Honorable Chief Justice Lourdes Sereno, as our special guest speaker. Chief Justice, as you heard Pearlie speak, ABAC's Women's Empowerment Initiatives is one of the pillars of our inclusive growth agenda. And your being with us today as an exemplary leader in our country is greatly appreciated. Thank you. The Philippines is proud to be ranked as number 1 in Asia and number 9 in the World Economic Forum report on those societies that have narrowed the gender gap. We've had 2 women presidents, and Chief Justice Sereno is the first Chief Justice of this country. 1 out of 3 in the APEC region, the other 2 being Canada and New Zealand. Our SOM chair, Laura Del Rosario, always jokes to say that, oh my goodness, we have her as a female SOM leader, an ABAC chair that's a female, and when you look at our teams, there are a lot of female leaders there as well. We greatly appreciate the role that our ABAC Chinese Taipei, Cher Wang, who's the founder of HTC, has played in bringing the importance of the ABAC Women's Forum each year, hosting this lunch, and each year having a very robust agenda in the ABAC recommendations to leaders. One of the four pillars of our inclusive growth agenda includes bringing up MSMEs, and one of that is extremely important aspect of that is to harness women's participation in the economy. ABAC has been actively engaged in numerous APEC initiatives for women, such as welcoming the APEC Healthy Women, Healthy Economy Policy Toolkit, and the APEC Women in Transportation Data Framework and Best Practices Report to encourage adoption and implementation by private companies in making their workplace more friendly to women. With all this, we are so thrilled, Chief Justice, that you're here to speak to us about your experience as a woman leader. Chief Justice, ABAC's work involves recommending policies to leaders so the region can be more economically integrated and connected, to give business, big and small, access to larger markets. One big concern we have identified concerns the rule of law. Many economies have opened trade and investment laws to be welcoming, only to find major impediments around unfriendly laws or unfriendly interpretations of friendly laws or friendly interpretations of bad laws. Whatever the case may be, business looks for transparency and predictability and believes that economies that offer the environment that is predictable and transparent will be the most attractive to investors. During our ABAC meeting in January, and speaking and engaging with the senior officials, we realized that the APEC system engages most of the sectors of government, except the judiciary. Because the rule of law is going to become a very important focus of next year's hosting in Peru, we feel very privileged to have this opportunity to listen to you. The Chief Justice has been very engaged in bringing together the Chief Justices around the Pacific Islands and other fora, and your ideas on how we can actually ensure that the rule of law also helps provide the transparency and predictability that business seeks as it aims to bring about prosperity to the region through investment. So we really look forward to listening to you. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome. Oh, not yet. Oh, okay. It doesn't say that on the program. So later on, you will be introduced properly. Chief Justice, thank you so much, and we hope you enjoy your lunch. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that warm welcome. I know that it seems to be out of the ordinary for a Chief Justice to be talking at an ABAC Leaders Forum, but it indeed gives me great pleasure to be here with you today. And please go on and try to finish your meal the best way you can. Relax, and allow me to first acknowledge the enormous effort of the leaders of this particular forum. You have Doris Magsaysay Ho. Doris is an exemplary woman in every way. We first had our long discussion on both a vessel. So at the time, our hairdos were both really wind-tossed, but now I see that we look a bit more decent today. So Tony, of course, of the Jollibee, heading the Jollibee group, on whose hamburger I partly grew. Anthony Nightingale, chair of the ABAC Connectivity Working Group. Of course, you have Juan, you have Peggy, and Sungju, and Deborah, whose conversations this lunchtime have allowed me to breathe more easily and to understand what you came here for. Now, when I first received the invitation from Doris, I had my judge's interpretation mind, and I said, the most important word when we create laws always comes first. So women, and then, of course, business. So it is the relationship of women and business. And the third is, in relative importance, last, the rule of law. And I was being given 10 to 15 minutes. So I was saying, I don't think I can talk about the very complicated relationship of women, business, and the rule of law in 15 minutes with full proportional representation of all those concepts. So I will encourage you to ask more detailed questions about what I do as Chief Justice in the open forum, because I don't think the minutes I have been given are really enough. Now, I look at the ABAC first, so that you understand where I'm coming from. As important, not only as a foremost people-to-people vehicle, but as an engine for creative energy. I also look at ABAC as having the ability to help APEC leaders break out of the staleness of state-to-state discussions. I know that that might seem strange to some, but having already heard some discussions at the high levels of government, they can also fall into the trap of doctrinaire formulas. And you can help break them out of that mode of discussion. And it cements what APEC is for. Search for greater opportunities for people in the region. Now, I was trying to look at the important researches on women and business. And I was thinking that the research material on women seemed to indicate to me that there is not enough research that is happening on why women go to business. So I was hoping that ABAC, among many private organizations interested in the topic, would do that. And I thought that the question of why women go to business has to do with the question on the difference between the motivations of women and men going to business. And ultimately, we have to bring ourselves to asking, is it related to a woman's search for meaning? And of course, the instinctive answer would be yes. And I discovered that the literature reveals that the search for more income for the family and for the self is there, but it is a universally shared trait. I also found out from the literature, and I have heard it from some of my close friends, that they went into business because they discovered that they have a talent for entrepreneurship, or some of them discovered that there is a market demand for their outputs, such as a hobby, baking cakes, or creating decorations, or doing jewelry on a hobby level. And I thought that there was also enough literature that indicates strongly that there is a desire to have an activity or an income that can be pursued with flexibility. Excuse me for a moment. Can I ask for a glass of water, please? And I tried to come up, yung notes ko andyan? Okay. I tried to come up with an analysis of these reasons. And first, I discovered that there is, of course, a universal desire for more income across genders. But I also discovered, and I'm already distilling in the very few minutes that we have, my observations, that women are not generally being purposed by the mainstream to develop themselves into business leaders, owners, or entrepreneurs, even if early on in life they may have shown entrepreneurial talent, or it needs a process of self-discovery before women go and decide to have a business of their own. But I also thought that one of the reasons why women go into business is they wanted to have more control of their time. And because they have so many constraints to deal with, relating especially to family responsibilities, thus they have the need for more flexibility in managing their own time. And it appears that some of the business literature and even some of the feminist, whatever feminist literature are still out there, have not sufficiently allowed women to fully be engaged and by an articulated business model that takes into consideration the constraints and the characteristics of women. For example, what the adaptive abilities of women is already a very interesting topic for study. The more opportunities women are allowed to engage in business shows the different business models that firms and government policymakers can introduce because of the particular need-driven invention that has driven need-driven motivation for women. And we have also come up with literature, and much of them is existing, that income from MSEs that women run can be scaled up to achieve a society's objective of having inclusive growth. And family orientation, which could be and should be a major policy of any government that is concerned with human development, can be more integrated as they are now being integrated in women-run businesses. And I thought that I saw in the literature certain conclusions also that distinguishes most, not all, most of the businesses being run by women. Usually they are in service vis-a-vis hard infra-related or manufacturing businesses, except in MSMEs. And this is critical because I can relate very closely to this. Women view their businesses as a projection or extension of their relationships, their families, and their communities. And they have smaller businesses and smaller employee base, and leadership for very large entities, usually, of course, the exceptions are really outstanding, are usually family related. And their management style is very different. It is intuitive, consensual, integrated decision-making process. On the table, I was commending Doris for having a charming way of speaking, even though the interruption she was referring to could be described by Peggy or Deborah as basically a way of a demonstration of women's abilities to smoothen out whatever miscues happen. What these literature predominantly demonstrate to us is that it is really high time for us to really think of why businesses exist, what are the core constituencies of businesses, and how should businesses be run. So my next question inevitably had to do with a question which, as Chief Justice, I'm not ever expected to ask, but now I will be asking, do we now need, as different societies in the Asia-Pacific economic area, do we need to restructure parts of our economy or business models to increase women leadership in business? And I strongly feel, yes, more flexibilities must be built in the way we do our economic models. Philippine labor laws, for example, are modeled on a very rigid, manufacturing type, hierarchical system of management. Women, on the other hand, use relationships very intensely and want a team effort philosophy to govern the way businesses are run. And present laws in our country do not sufficiently acknowledge that distinctive characteristic of many women-run businesses. We must also, as a group, make the case stronger for the advantages of multifaceted leadership that have been demonstrated by women-run businesses. That means the consensual, intuitive, community-based, family type feeling that are being run in businesses that are led by women should also be recognized and amply rewarded. And third, if we are going to reach our non-economic goals and we are going to look about the quality of life indices that not only have to do with the HDI indicators, but really about the question of whether a person feels more whole or not, because his personality is being considered in all its facets. Then we have to increase the incentives for businesses that are family-friendly to their own employees. And therefore, if that is so, then the legal structure, starting first with substantive law, must also respond. And taking off from what Doris was saying, we need to make the playing field more transparent, fair, predictable. We must open with open information that is internet-friendly and with simpler rules. And we encourage incentives for networking that does not destroy family time. And we lean heavily against corruption-tainted and old boys network. Forgive me for using this this gender-tainted word, but old boys network ways of doing business. What is my point here? Now I come to the third term of the theme, which is rule of law. This is how I connect in a very short way, because this is the only time I have. Allow me to demonstrate why I believe we need to restructure both the substantive law of our countries and the way we interpret those substantive laws from the judiciary's point of view. The case in point, first, developing countries and corruption in the judiciary. In discussion after discussion, whether it is locally conducted or whether it was in the International Business Bar Association conference that I attended as one of the speakers, where I spoke about corruption in the judiciary, there were remarks that there are, of course, judiciaries that are relatively corruption-free. So, gender was not even an issue there. But in judiciaries that are still trying to bring its standard of performance to the highest level of a corruption-free regime, the struggle to clean the ranks of the judiciary is more winnable with women being in strong leadership positions and with more women presence. And that was generally agreed to by a simple theory, backed up at the moment by survey perceptions and anecdotal evidence that female judges tend to be less prone to corruption than male judges. And the simple explanation, at this stage in our discussions, you will just have to accept that we have just simple anecdotal theories and explanations. We need to do a lot more in-depth studies on this. Women judges shun the nightlife. They usually proceed to attend to family or community responsibilities after work, whether it is to attend to children, parents, or church activities. And in such a setting, it is difficult to strike a deal, so to speak. So it is at this point just a simple explanation. So you will just allow me to put a lot of caution in that statement. The second case in point, the glass ceiling and the glass cliff. I came upon some recent literature that talks about the fact that while in some societies and in some industries the glass ceiling has been broken or shattered, there are still glass ceilings that they call invisible, because although they are non-tactile, you can still feel the cut-off point. So that still is a phenomenon that ABAC leaders must address. But I also came upon an interesting counterpoint. If there is still this glass ceiling that exists for women, why in crisis situation is it perceived that women are preferred to solve and turn around businesses from going over the cliff? In other words, there was a survey for respondents' preference. In a situation of a male and a female qualified applicant, when a business is being run well by a male, the preference is for a male successor. But if a business is being run by a male and it is running into trouble, then the clear preference was for the female to get the situation again in hand and to prevent the company from going under. So they call it the glass cliff phenomenon. So I thought that we had to study the problem because it might actually be an indication that women can solve crises better in some situations, that in tough, difficult, socially complicated situations, such as in developing countries that are facing corruption, women tend to make better judgments, like our anecdotal stories about women judges, and that there is something really about the female style of management that must be recognized by mainstream business literature and by mainstream documents regarding the structuring of economies. And these are, again, my tentative theories. I don't know really when my husband was reading my presentation whether he felt he was agreeing with my theories or not, but I'm sure he was so good at hiding his hurt. Joke, this is just a joke. So I think women can develop consensus more easily. And if you are in trouble, then the best candidate would be a consensus builder, right? So I thought that women can do that. And a woman can make the employees feel that the enterprise is a family and you do everything you can to save your family. And I think women are more effective people when it comes to making the call for sacrifice. Now, as Chief Justice and the rule of law, what can female leadership do? As Doris said, I am only one of the 3 female Chief Justices in the region. But I noticed that I have quite a holistic and long-term approach to things. While they describe the male way of thinking as linear and sequential, I can have a perspective that is wider and can take cognizance of several things running at the same time and solving crises one after the other and fighting fires that break out in every which spot. I think it is because of my exposure to my day-to-day exigencies and the fact that I had to maintain a career even though I had 2 children to raise of my own. And then I thought that for the rule of law, whereas formal rules and formal structures seem to be more comfortable for males, I thought that I had a better intuitive ability to perceive the unspoken sense of employees and constituents. I could detect with my nose and with my 6th eye that something is wrong and something is bothering a person. And then I go about in a roundabout way without hurting feelings of trying to find out what the problem is all about. And then I think women can demonstrate a sense of balance. And this is borne out by the literature that says, between earning or maximizing profits and maintaining a work-life balance, a woman business owner would prefer to forego maximizing profit in order to maintain a work-life balance, because for the woman, it is very clear that some non-economic goals are more important than maximizing profits, such as being better at what she does, helping people, maintaining family and work-life balance. And in some societies, women can really be very good communicators relative to their male counterparts. And in my own leadership of the court, for example, whenever I talk to my employees, I don't talk to them as just delivering units of justice. In the first place, that's quite difficult to quantify. While a private company can already generate a projected revenue target, I cannot do that. I can only say that we must let our people see that not only do we have faster disposition and clearance rates of our docket, but we must let our people feel that justice is really being served. So a woman can speak more powerfully about quality on top of minimum quantitative measurements. And so, what do all the above mean for ABAC leadership? I think you, as a group, are powerful enough that you can shake traditional norms of thinking and start the out-of-the-box thinking, so that indeed we can have a fairer world where women's unique abilities are formally recognized for what they are: institution builder, business builders, consensus builders, problem solvers, crisis managers, while at the same time always being driven by the desire to help others, their communities, and most especially their loved ones. You can also say that we can make family orientation a measurement of the excellence by way businesses are being run. So mainstream it instead of making it just an incidental outlier. You could also push for more flexibilities by not requiring that when an interviewee who is applying for a high position is saying and disclosing in her interview that she had interruptions in her career because she had to take care of an ailing parent or a child or a sickness in the family, that is not taken against her, but that be recognized as her ability to sacrifice her own personal goals for a higher objective. I also wish that when an interviewee says that maximizing my potential income is not my life goal, but it is to be of service to others and to maintain a work-life balance, you will appreciate that as the prospect of having an applicant, leader, or employee who can bring also a sense of balance to your own organization. I could also say that we should push for more transparency and a fairer playing field. Now, am I talking about these simply by reading the literature on women, business, leadership, and the rule of law? No, I'm not. I come here because of my own personal story. I gave up a stellar career because I graduated at the top of my law school. So naturally, I was the target of the headhunters in my field. And I opted out of the law firm life because I gave birth in my second year in the law office, and then 4 months later, I became pregnant again. So I had to decide pretty quickly because I knew very well what the consequence would be to those 2 children of having a mother who would come home past midnight every day. So I opted out of that fast track to go into the academe, which would allow me to have more control of my time. And I was given all the dire warnings that very, very ambitious people give talented individuals. You are going to regret forever your decision. When your kids hit high school and you cannot afford to give them the best kind of education, you will come to regret it. You are afraid of success. All of those stereotypical analysis of why an individual should choose a different path, even though a very fantastic career opening is already there, just waiting to be grabbed and nurtured and developed. I did not need to speak to those warnings because it was very clear to me that if I do not succeed as an individual in my basic core function, which is to be a mother who is able to care for her children, to allow the family to be centered on the correct set of values, even while I am developing my intellectual side, and of course, my need to also feel that I can contribute to the community. If I do not attend to that, I will forever not know myself anymore. And so I opted out. And by God's grace, I got fantastic consultancies, one after the other, even while I was raising 2 children. Sometimes I would bring the 2 children to consultancy meetings. They would find it funny. When I got my graduate degree in Ann Arbor, I brought 2 children along with me on the stage to accept my diploma. So what I thought I was saying is, I am comfortable with myself. and I will be as excellent I can be in whatever position has been open to me. Now, those people who told me you will forever regret it cannot say that anymore because I'm Chief Justice. In other words, people should not negate the validity of the unorthodox path. And women are making a loud cry that the unorthodox way by which they are trying to contribute to the economy and make sure that their families are all right should now be considered as also orthodox. It is high time it be mainstreamed. And so I will end by saying, women, as Churchill said, holding the cradle, rule the world, but I don't think that's really fair. Men should also do cradling work and find out the richness that taking care personally of their children can bring them. Women hold half of the world, another saying goes, but let this burden not be unduly heavy because of biases. We must recognize female characteristics as equipped for solving certain situations and duly reward the same. And the ideal is when we women have been enabled to help bring about a world in which we can be fully who we are and yet be engaged fully with our male counterparts in these activities and these careers, that we also take sufficient time to help other women in less fortunate situations. So thank you very much, and good day. Okay. Salamin po.
Thank you, Chief Justice. It was very, very inspirational and passionate talk. We're all really moved. And now can I invite Doris back on the stage to join Chief Justice in moderating a dialogue with the ABAC members. Questions, comments, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chief Justice. I thought that was a very amazing story, and I love the ending. So we'd love to open the floor to questions. Anthony. Here.
Okay. Let me grab that. Well, first of all, Chief Justice, thank you for that extraordinary speech. It kind of gathered pace as you went through and became more and more enthusiastic. I'm actually going to make a couple of closing remarks in a minute, so I will touch on an observation or two. But now, a question. Can I ask you a question about the law? You've told us a lot about yourself, which has been fascinating. But where do you see we are in ASEAN, APEC, and maybe particularly in the Philippines, with regards legal certainty and the honesty of judges?
Well, of course, I can only answer for the Philippines, but with respect to how our judges are behaving. But let me just give a broader perspective first. Since 3 years ago, the Chief Justices of the ASEAN have been meeting in order to do substantive collaboration on many areas of law. Now, in the ASEAN, you have a range of judiciaries, some of whom are required to work very closely with the executive departments, some of whom are very independent, such as the Philippine judiciary. And eventually, the universal value is shared that you cannot run any economy unless the fundamentals of the rule of law are there. Now, I have also had the occasion to be also part of the Asian Association of Constitutional Courts, the Asia-Pacific meetings of the Chief Justices, and of course the Pacific Judicial Council, which is the Pacific Island territories and countries. Now, you cannot, your problem of selling the question of a universal norm for rule of law is already solved because all the heads of the judiciaries already agree. Now, the task is how to make the judiciaries agree that there can be a reasonable and common set of metrics. Now, in the Philippines, I have taken the path of trying to look at the international metrics for when a court is rated as good or not. And my job is complicated by the fact that you have a very, very strong media here that enjoys maybe pushing the story a bit too far. So the perception surveys indicate that in the Philippines, the perception of the Supreme Court's work and the perception of the judiciary is increasing more favorably. So you have the perception that regardless of the episodic anger that sometimes the public demonstrates with respect to some of our rulings, the feeling is generally that the judiciary is on the right path. But I don't want to be content with perception-based surveys. I have taken the trouble of getting in touch with US-based organizations so that we can go through the international framework for court excellence point by point. We have a scientific way of measuring delay because I think that what will endure will be proof that can be proven over time as against just a mere propaganda blitz. So when you come to a rule of law regime, rule of law requires, first of all, that the legislation be first sound. Now, this is for the legislature to address. For example, our labor code, which I know that the business community is concerned with, is a 1974 era labor code. So, our tax regimes are also basically circa 1990s. So if you're talking about the two major business frameworks for regulation for business, you have to ask yourself the question of whether there is not only the need of the judiciary to respond in a way that signals predictability and fairness, but you have to ask the more a prior question of whether the laws themselves are substantially sound. Now, with respect to predictability, I have taken the pain of seeing to it that there are no contradicting decisions anymore in the divisions of the Supreme Court. We go through a very robust decision-making process to ensure this. I have also engaged the academic community to find out the areas of judicial interpretation that businesses are most sensitive to. So this is, of course, having to show itself as a work that is achieving its goals over time. I am just in my fourth year of office. I just ended my third year in office. We have already made a lot of gainway in the area of transparency. We're publishing a lot of information on our website, fully audited books. We inform the public immediately as soon as a decision is rendered, and our chief information officer explains it to the public. So, as with any organization, and you have run many organizations, our organization is 114-year-old. And if there have not been enough manuals of procedure governing that organization, you can imagine the kind of work I am doing right now. So, in many ways, I already am seeing people really responding positively to the work of the judiciary. Now, when it comes to the criminal procedure aspect, we need the Department of Justice to do their share, which is not under my jurisdiction. We need law enforcement. You have the police and other law enforcement agencies to ask your help for. You need the prosecutorial arm for corruption, anti-corruption efforts, which is in the Ombudsman. All of these have to work so that you can have a strong rules of law-based regime. With respect specifically to litigation, and I'm talking about commercial litigation, the judiciary has just released 2 rules on insolvency and on rehabilitation. And we have already commercial courts that are run by very highly trained commercial court judges, and we are trying to have expedited trials and even continuous trials. I hope that in about a couple of years, I will have enough data to show the efficiency of our commercial courts. And I do realize that for a long time, the Philippines has not engaged all the major stakeholders in talking about the policy framework that is needed to really run this economy well. There has been a disjoint, and to a certain extent, I have been daring a little to push the envelope further by trying to create as many working groups that will engage those who have a lot of stake in our country, even though they are not formally part of the judicial system. The long and short of it, Anthony, is that it is getting there.
Okay, I think, Peggy, you have a question? No, you don't? Because I see a hand out there. If you have one, or you don't? Okay, go ahead. Introduce yourself, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Stephen Chan with State Street based in Hong Kong, and thank you very much, Madam Chief Justice, for your analysis. I also want to say that State Street last year was recognized as one of the top 50 companies in APEC for women development and leadership. My question for you, Madam Chief Justice, is that while completely agree in terms of more engagement support for women, there are a lot of government policies and business practices that also put a lot of pressure on males. And that makes it very challenging for men to also hold the other half of the world or to play a more role in the cradle. Just curious to hear your perspective on what can government policies and businesses do to address that so that there'll be more of a balance so that men can play that critical role in families to allow women to be more engaged in business. Thank you.
Well, I think we have to expand the meaning of paternity leaves and family leaves, because taking care of people or your family does not only involve taking care of the children, but in Asia, we also take care of our parents very strongly, of course, in other countries as well. But we don't have yet in the Philippines at least, we love taking care of our old people. So that concept must be expanded. And in the Supreme Court, we have a daycare center, and it is more, the most surprising thing about it is that it is the male employees, more of them are bringing their children to the daycare than the mothers are. So I don't know what accounts for that, but it is a great help, and it is so good to see the fathers bringing their own children to our daycare. So we should encourage the daycare system. And parenting seminars, and I've been thinking of having, for example, the wellness concept should not only be about taking care of oneself, but how do you also take care of people? So enriching an individual's capacity to take care not only of his environment, but also of those he loves would be really good. And I'm sure men will appreciate such training also, or orientation.
Thank you. Peggy?
Thank you. First, Chief Justice, I think with amazing women like you, the rule of law can help women in business not be discriminated against overtly. I just wanted to make one comment about women being discriminated against more subtly, and you had a few of these when we go off to have children. Maybe we're the quieter one in the room and not the aggressive one. We tend to be overlooked a bit. I've spoken at this luncheon before about our need for more women in engineering. I'm an engineer myself, and we used to graduate a lot more of them into the engineering field, and the numbers come way down. From 1984, it was about 37%, and now it's down to about 12% women. And then when they enter the workforce, they are exposed to a variety of unconscious biases that unfortunately they end up dropping out. And so we sort of get a double whammy. We're not graduating enough, and then we're not keeping them there. So at Microsoft, we decided to kind of unpack that and try to understand that better. What are the behaviors that are going into that? And we put a very, very comprehensive program in place to study unconscious biases in the workforce. And we've now trained 70,000 of our over 100,000 employees on unconscious bias. we've taken those guidelines and we've put them into 7 different languages, and we have them posted on our website and on global inclusion. And I would encourage those of you in the room who can help us kind of fight these unconscious biases, take a look at those, because if you shine a light on it, you can bring action to it. That was it. Thank you.
Can I just respond very quickly, very quickly? You know, when I went to Vienna to speak at the International Business Bar Association, I deliberately wore pink, a pink suit, and I'm wearing it now because I'm saying that women should feel comfortable with themselves. I think it is time that we stop pretending and we stop trying to be more masculine looking, masculine sounding. I told an interview that was conducted there, I don't enjoy power games. I don't enjoy the mind games that I see some powerful men do, whether it's in the law office or even in the judiciary. To a certain extent, it is self-defeating because they will end up not being able to be honest with themselves. Instead of directly answering the issue and being open and candid with your sentiments, as long as you know that your heart is in the right direction, then you are able to solve problems more easily and you are able to have more harmonious relationships. And what is wrong with that? What is wrong with not being aggressive? What is wrong with being very considerate of the feelings of another person? That is why when the occasion is appropriate, I talk my role as a mother and now a grandmother. When I can, I bring my children with me. I talk about my family because these used to be taboo subjects when it comes to formal discussions or even business discussions. But why should they be? They are part of who we are. I cannot be a good Chief Justice if I cannot recognize that part of myself. To deny that is to have a broken personality. So why don't we bring about wholeness again?
Chief Justice, you've been so fascinating. The time has run out, but I have to ask one question. I mentioned earlier that when we had our meetings with the senior officials, we realized we were not engaging the judiciary enough as far as rule of law. Since you have so much experience in the Pacific Islands, the ASEAN, what government agency do you think in the APEC region, what agency or what department do you think we should really engage, the APEC system should engage with it? Is it the court? Is it the administration justice departments? Is it the office of the President's legal counsel? I just wanted to have maybe a quick answer because Peru is here and they have to be guided from your experience.
Raul? Raul. Juan Ralfo. Okay, so I'm sorry. Actually, I was telling Doris that you have to do political scoping. But I said, why am I going to ask Doris to do political scoping? This is not her expertise. So what I suggest is that you make an invitation to both the executive department and the judiciary, the chief justices, or the presidents of their court. Some consider that the highest court. And then you let them figure it out. Somehow they will arrive at a system where you can see their presence of both branches there, or you can see that the judiciary is working very closely with the executive department. But that should already be their problem. But it is, I think, not wise for an invitation not to be sent to the judiciaries. It is up to them to accept or not.
It's been a very interesting presentation by you, and let me share that we had, I think it was a year ago, the initiative of rule of law from within ABAC, but with the perspective of business sector, because at the end of the day, we're all businessmen and businesswomen. So what we found out was that through the grading system, let's say, of the economies of APEC, we had a very clear, distinct group of economies, those most developed, that are basically investor economies, investing in the region and in the whole world, who came out with much better qualifications than another group of economies, very important also in Asia, that are the ones in need of investment. So from the prospect of business again, the rule of law concept is that when you invest, you want to have the security that there's a concept of rule of law abiding that economy, and that whatever happens, provided you comply with the law, you will be protected adequately. Since then, and through the initiative of Doris, we have you here today, but we are in the, let's say, crossroads of seeing how we can put through this system, because the Supreme Justices, unfortunately, are not all like you. So we're going to follow through. We're going to do something next year. Hopefully, we'll have the ministers of finance or our leaders involved in the importance of this subject. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I'd like to now ask Anthony Nightingale to just give some closing remarks. Anthony? Sure.
No, you're fine then. Chief Justice, ladies and gentlemen, I will be brief because we've taken up far too much of the Chief Justice's valuable time. We also have the ABAC meetings now running, but there are one or two important things I wanted to say. First of all, congratulations, Pearlie and Kathy, on organizing another great ABAC women's event. This has become a permanent feature, an important feature now of every ABAC meeting. I'm also very grateful that in the spirit of inclusiveness, you invite us men to your gathering. And in fact, there have been lots of us here today, which is good because it's been a fascinating occasion. Chief Justice, thank you for your insights. I enjoyed the beginning when you talked about how women running businesses face challenges and also did it in a different way than men, more flexible, more consensual, more community-based. And your own story, delivered very enthusiastically and in a colorful fashion, added, I think, emphasis to all the points you were making. I enjoyed and learned from many of your observations. Perhaps one that will stay with me most was the thought that lady judges, because of their lack of enthusiasm for nightlife, are inherently less susceptible to corruption than men judges, their male counterparts. All very true, I'm sure. Thank you also for your comments at the end about the rule of law. Juan has again said this is going to be a very important subject for us next year. What we look for, we business people look for, transparency, consistency, fairness, legal certainty. Thank you again, Chief Justice, for all your time today and for a fascinating and heartfelt presentation. Thank you. Well done, ladies.
Thank you so much. So nice to have that opportunity. Yeah, that's
As
great.
always,
No, it was a pleasure.
reliable.
I must say, really
She was looking for her puke.
yeah, that's probably right. And then she decided she could
I
manage
like
without. But it was very good. It went very well. I better get into REIWG. I think.
Thank you, Anthony. Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks very much. Okay. Andy, I've been asked to take a picture with her alone.
Hi, sir.
What a treat. Great job.